Frank is a production engineer at a motor vehicle company. One of his responsibilities is to inspect damaged motor vehicles and prepare designs for adequate repair. One day, Frank received instructions from his manager to repair an ATV whose rear axle assembly had fractured. Frank gives the vehicle a thorough inspection and realizes that the axles that it had were made of a material that didn't have the right amount of strength or hardness to withstand the off-road terrain the vehicle was being used for. He assumes that the ATV may have been custom made and that the customer simply hadn't known what material would be best suited for that kind of use. So, Frank incorporates a change in material into his design for repair, but later finds out that the customer wished for the ATV to be repaired, but that no changes were made in the way that it looked. The design that Frank came up with would alter the appearance of the vehicle, but would also make it safer to use. When Frank brings up this issue with his manager, he assures him that the customer is always right. Frank is aware that if he repairs the ATV according to the wishes of the customer, the ATV might break down again, potentially in a dangerous way. However, if he proceeds with his improvements, he goes against what the customer and his manager want. As an engineer, the most important thing that should always be considered first and foremost is safety. Engineers must work according to a set of codes and standards. These codes and standards are constantly changing and being updated as technology advances. Engineers must always be able to make the most ethical decisions, even when they are under pressure. Frank managed to pinpoint that the issue was in the type of material used, and also knew how to find a material that would meet the requirements of the vehicle and its purposes. Engineers must have the intuition to find out what material they need based on the properties they are looking for, and in this case, that property is the material's toughness. In their work, engineers conform to certain codes and standards that depend on the product and its uses. There are several organizations that produce the codes and standards engineers employ. Some of these include the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, the American Society of Civil Engineers, and the American National Standards Institute. In Frank's scenario, he is following codes and standards for axles that come from the American Iron and Steel Institute, also known as AISI. The standard for the material used in axles is 4130 steel, which is a high carbon steel alloy, so it is both stronger and harder than alloys without carbon. Engineers are the most important aspect in the improvement of technology. With that being said, codes and standards must be updated as such. According to the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, codes and standards are living documents that are constantly revised to reflect new developments and technical advances. These improvements and advancements in technology are put in place to make life easier for those affected by it, and codes and standards are put into place so that the safety of those affected is prioritized. In a perfect world, safety would be the number one priority considered by all parties involved. Sometimes, however, engineers face other priorities from their organizations or their customers. Engineers have to be able to make the right decisions, even when they are facing pressure from management or their customers. In Frank's scenario, there are two major factors he must consider: the safety of his customer and the reputation of his company. Ethics plays a major role in decisions like this, and an engineer in this situation is faced with making a really tough decision. If Frank were to obey the wishes of his customer and manager, he risks putting the customer and therefore the company at risk. However, if Frank were to fix the ATV according to codes and standards for ATV design, he risks losing the business of the customer and losing his job. Michael Josephson, the founder of the Joseph and Edna Josephson Institute of Ethics, states, "Among the universal ethical values are honesty, integrity, promise-keeping, fidelity, fairness, respect for others, responsible citizenship, pursuit of excellence, and accountability." As a result of ethics, engineering is considered to be one of the most trustworthy fields, as a good engineer will always take ethics into consideration when making decisions, even when under pressure. Like many engineers, Frank is faced with a problem that he must face on a personal, professional, and ethical level. Engineers work according to codes and standards for safe use of the technologies they are creating or improving. Those codes and standards are constantly being updated in order to keep the public safe and prevent failure of the product. Sometimes, however, engineers are faced with pressure from their higher-ups and their customers, which makes the decision-making process a lot more difficult. As an engineer, the most important thing that should always be considered first and foremost is safety. In Frank's situation, and in similar situations faced by other engineers, it is important to uphold ethics. Good engineers always make sure that their work is thorough and must always uphold honesty in everything that they do. Thank you.